This program is produced by Eagle Mountain Apostolic Resource Center. To find additional episodes of this program, as well as other content, visit eaglemountain.tv.
I'm going on record right now, I've never had a harebrained idea.
He's had lots of ideas that have hair on them.
Did you just say I've had lots of ideas with hair on them?
Yes. Okay.
Oh my goodness. What?
The devil?
I found him.
Why am I not surprised that he's in here?
He's over here in this bucket. There he is. Mr. Sin! Not bothering us anymore.
How are you doing there, Foxy?
Such a beef wit.
Do you know who you're talking to? I'm Mr. Sin. You can't talk to me like that. You don't have to be rude.
I said beef wit.
Beef wit, that's even worse. No, I'm not a fan of that, but I am a fan of finding out what you're doing after this show. Maybe we could go grab some drinks or something. What do you say?
No thanks.
Hey everyone, welcome to Together We Build. My name is Chris Behnke. I'm here with Prudence, and I'm here also with our guest, Morgan McCarver. I'm super excited to get into this, but before we get going, I gotta start off with this question. I gotta start right off. If you had a late night talk show, who would you invite as your first guest?
Can we have a different question?
Are you kidding?
Yeah, no, I'm not kidding.
You really want a different question?
I don't have the foggiest.
You don't know? Okay, I'll ask
What
you.
about that one question?
Which one
The
question?
style question.
The style question?
Yeah. Well, what style?
What
would
style?
it be?
Okay, you want to do that question. Okay. Morgan, I'm sorry about this, but Prudence she's saying we got to switch questions up. So we haven't even got
Sounds
going
good.
here, and we're going to switch questions up. Okay. So here's the question I think that you want. If you were going to bring back a fashion trend,
Yeah.
what would it be?
I would bring back like 40s and 50s, maybe 60s style dresses for women.
Okay. Yep. I can see that. Morgan, how about you?
I like it. I would probably bring back women's hats. I
Women's
think they're
hats.
super cool.
Yeah. I feel like that we definitely need to pay more attention to style. I feel like we've kind of like culturally, Western society, we've gotten a little bit lax. I think that's what you guys are both saying. You're saying we need hats. We need to pay attention. Does that, you guys agree?
Yeah.
We kind of,
We got lazy.
Athleisure took over. Yeah.
We're a bit lazy now.
Totally. Well, we've got Morgan McCarver on as a guest today. I'm super excited to hear your story, talk about what you do. But before we do that, where are you in the world?
I am in Asheville, North Carolina right now.
And you grew up there, or how did you end up in Asheville?
I'm from upstate South Carolina, and I recently moved to Asheville about 2 years ago, kind of towards the end of the pandemic. But I moved up here to work for a potter. Asheville's a really big art town, so it's great to be here.
And how do you love it so far? You digging it?
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that is so cool. So when you say a potter, you actually mean like a potter that makes pottery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. That is so cool. Okay. So we do this thing, Morgan. We do this thing where we have this trivia, and it's you against Prudence. And Prudence for season 3 of Together We Build, she chose animal trivia. Now, little inside scoop to those of you that are watching is I forgot to hit record, so we actually are doing this trivia again. Don't worry about that. We're doing this trivia again, but I'm not going to give you guys the same questions, okay? Because we had a little bit of a false start. So if you're feeling really confident because you know the answers, we're going with new questions. Okay, here we go. The first one is, what is the loudest insect in the world? The loudest insect in the world.
A locust?
Okay, so we got one guess that's a locust.
That's a good guess.
And what do you think, Morgan?
I'm thinking some kind of cricket.
Some kind of cricket. Okay, so neither of those are correct, but I'm not actually sure how to say this. It's spelled cicada. Cicada.
Yeah, cicadas.
Oh, I've heard of cicada. Now that Jason said it, see, they're loud.
Look, what type of an
Okay, so you remember when we did that event in, where'd we go? Midwest, St. Louis. Remember those bugs that were flying around that were super loud? That's a cicada, right, Jason? Yeah, those are loud. Okay, so I'm going to give that to both of you guys because neither one of you got it right. Trivia question: how many flowers do honeybees have to visit to produce 1 pound of honey? Oh my goodness, it's got to be a lot. What are your guesses? What do you think, Morgan? How many flowers does a honeybee have to visit to make 1 pound of honey?
3,000.
3,000. Okay. Morgan, what do you think?
Oh, I was thinking like 5 million.
Okay. So I'm going to give that to Morgan. It's actually 2 million, but 5,000.
Oh.
What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, how big are their buckets?
They're little. There's just little hairs on their legs,
Just
right?
funny,
Isn't that, yeah. Because a pound is, oh my goodness. Okay. Morgan, you're doing amazing. What animals have teeth that never stop growing?
Rabbits. I know those are one.
Okay. Rabbits.
Yeah. Is there more than one?
There's 3.
Oh, 3.
Got to move your mic way closer.
Hamsters. Or no, gerbils. Mice.
Beavers?
Rodents.
Okay. Beavers,
the
rabbits, rodents, hamsters, gerbils. There's one more.
A beaver, is it a rodent? Is it classified as a rodent?
I have no idea. The answer, you guys get credit on that for sure. The answer that is on this, which by the way, this just came from interestingtrivia.com website. So I don't even know the validity of these answers, but they say rabbits, squirrels, and rodents. So I think a lot of what you said is rodents, but I don't know if I don't think a beaver's a rodent.
I think it is.
Let's ask Google.
I think it's a large rodent.
Are beavers rodents?
Yes, they are.
They're rodents. Man.
Oh, they're cute.
They're not cute.
They are cute.
I don't know about that. Okay, last question. Here we go. What sea creature has the ability to clone itself? Whoa, that's weird. What sea creature?
Is that a starfish?
Okay, so we got a starfish. What's your answer? Don't get it wrong.
I don't know, Chris.
Maybe it's starfish.
Sort of a mussel?
Not sure. Some sort of a mussel. The answer is jellyfish. 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 I wonder, so jellyfish, do they even think? I don't think they even have, do they have brains?
Well, they must have something.
They must have something. I don't know, but I would say that if we really had to be truthful, I think Morgan won. I think she won both the round I didn't record and this one. So
well, very good. Very
you've
good.
Been defeated
it's
twice.
really
Today.
too bad we don't have a prize for this.
The prize is this amazing cheers button. I'm not supposed to hit that thing so much, but I'll tell you what, the animal trivia is definitely interesting. I definitely didn't see some of those going, but that's not even what this episode is about. This episode is really to hear Morgan's story. And I really want to dig into, so Morgan's an artist. She's a Christian. And I feel like a lot of the church, I personally believe, I think you think this too, Prudence, but a lot of the church really kind of thinks art is like not a kind of a God thing. But I personally...
Not relevant, maybe.
Not relevant. That's a great way to say it. But I personally feel like no one is more creative than God. He's a creative God. He made us in his image. And so he made us to be creative. He wants us to be creative. And I think the enemy likes to whisper in our ears that, we don't have any creativity. And you hear people say, I don't have a creative bone in my body, which means they don't draw well, usually is what that means. But it doesn't mean they're not creative. So let's kick this off. Morgan, can you give us a backstory? Who is Morgan and how did you find yourself in Asheville making pottery?
Yeah, basically, I've always looked for that creative outlet. I always needed some kind of creativity in my life. And so for a while, it was dancing. I loved dancing competitively. And then that pretty much came to an end when I had spinal fusion surgery for scoliosis at age 14.
Wow.
And I was looking for that creative outlet because for that year-long recovery process, I wasn't supposed to dance, of course. And so that's really how I discovered my love of pottery. And ultimately, that ended up leading me on basically my career path. I ended up going to college to get a degree in ceramics. I started my business after that. I moved to Asheville, and ultimately that led to me writing the book, God the Artist.
Wow, that is amazing. So I want to go into some of those things. Let's start with the book. It's fairly recently came out, right?
Yes, January of this year, 2024.
Okay. And your first book, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're going to put links to all of this stuff where you can find Morgan, all that. We'll put all that in the show notes, but tell us about the book, what led to the book. And I mean, you're saying that your journey led you there, but tell us about the book. We'd love to know more about that.
Of course. Basically, I'm wanting to encourage the reader on their own creative journey. And a lot of this stems from me about to graduate college, realizing I'm about to lose this amazing art community, specifically the ceramics community that I had had for 4 years. And when I realized that, I started looking for a devotion book to read about God and pottery in the Bible and how that's referenced, because I know there's verses out there and I knew they existed. I just wanted something to read to connect with. And at the time, I couldn't find what I was looking for. And so at that point, the Holy Spirit really put it on my heart that I could start taking notes and maybe this could be something that I could work on. And so that's kind of ultimately how God the Artist came about. It took many years later for it to actually come into existence. I tried to get it published back in 2019 and that did not work. Thankfully, that very rough manuscript was rejected. But basically, in January of 2023, I felt the Holy Spirit calling me to revisit that manuscript. And so that's the copy of God the Artist that exists today.
Wow.
And so it's a story of basically going through the steps of pottery, starting at the very beginning. I say you don't have to be a potter or a Christian to read this book, that I kind of go through both as we go along. But I start at the very beginning of clay. What is clay? How does it come out of the ground? How do you harvest clay, so to speak? And we go all the way through throwing on the pottery wheel to glazing and firing the pieces. And all along the way, we're talking about the Bible verses that are reflecting this and
Wow.
the symbolism that God's put into this.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome.
So pottery, that's got to be like one of the world's oldest forms of art, isn't it?
Yeah. It's got
Would you say?
It's up there. I would say for sure the cave paintings might predate it. I'm not sure, but there are pieces of pottery that are centuries old that we still have in existence today.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be one of the oldest because they had to make things, they had to make tools with pottery. And so, if somebody's making a tool and they're crafting it by hand, that some people are they're gonna pour into that in kind of an art way, right? So making lamps and
Right.
bowls and plates. So that's really cool. That's super cool. I feel like it's probably lost a lot because of the mass production of
Yeah.
things.
How do you feel about, like, as an artist with hand making something and then, a factory is manufacturing it like crazy? I like to make things too. And so sometimes I ask myself the question, why am I even spending all this time
Right.
on this when, people can just go to the nearest store or order like 5 million something similars. There is a difference between, like, there is a reason why we like to touch and create.
Yeah.
It's scratching an itch of some sort. I'm sure that you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And it is hard pricing my work when I see, bowls at the dollar store. It's like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But there is something special about that relationship, especially the potter and the clay. It's so hands-on and you're working directly with the clay constantly, and just realizing that this mug that I'm making, that I'm touching and having such a personal relationship crafting this mug, this is going to go home with somebody and they're going to hold it and drink their coffee out of it every morning, or, display it as an heirloom, pass it down to their children. So there is something kind of satisfying in that legacy of building connections, even through artwork, that I'm not going to be there when they're using the pottery they bought from me, but still I'm a part of that.
Yes. Well, so like the Lord makes and crafts each one of us uniquely individual, I mean, we're humans, but we're all different in different ways. And I think that that's the same way when it comes to handcrafting our art, is we're emulating that from the Lord and how he has established creation. I mean, nothing is the same. It's all different. Every tree, every snowflake, every person, animal, you name it.
Yeah, I think there's, it's like, something cool sometimes about having things really uniform, right? Like, you go into a house and they've just like got all of the chinas exactly the same. It all matches perfectly. There's all their forks match or whatever. There's something kind of cool about that. But when you just, you've also been in places where like that's all the way, right? Like the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, like everything is exactly perfect. And it creates this kind of sterile environment to me. And I think like when you were saying that, Morgan, what I was feeling is like, oh, like when that happens, you miss out on like the DNA, for lack of a better description, of the creator, right? When you go to the dollar store, you buy, 10 plates, for $10, like that's functional and useful, but you definitely have no connection with the creator because they were mass produced by a machine somewhere.
And you're not sad when it breaks. So it's useful when you have small children, right? Like here's the dollar store plates, but like you don't have a connection with the creator.
Exactly. Yeah. That relationship is lost.
Yeah. So I feel like one of the things I hear you saying is, like you had to go and figure out how to have that creation relationship with what you were making, and you do that through your pottery. So press into that some more.
Yeah, of course. That's really what drew me into pottery at the very beginning. When I wasn't able to dance and I was recovering, I wasn't supposed to bend or twist or do anything that normal teenagers do. And so the clay is just so malleable and flexible, and you can make anything. I mean, relatively anything you can make out of clay. And so that was so freeing to me at the time because I was able to find that flexibility in the clay that I couldn't find in my body through dance anymore.
Right.
And so that's ultimately what started this deep connection, this love of this craft, is really unpacking everything you can do with the techniques. And that just kept getting more and more in depth as I kept studying it.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
So you're also a small business owner. How long have you had your small business?
Officially since I graduated, so 2019.
Okay. And how has it been running your own business?
I feel like that's a leading question. It's rough, especially because I started my business right before the pandemic. And so, when people get scared, they're not going to buy art. That's just history. That's not my opinion.
It's like one of the first things that goes out the door, isn't it?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting is during that time, do you know what a lot of people were doing during lockdown? Artistic things, creative things, especially pottery. I was working at a ceramic supply store at the time, working retail, and we were shipping pottery supplies all over the nation because everyone wanted to learn this craft from home. And I think that's so powerful that when we have that free time on our hands, even though it's in the form of a lockdown, we turn to art. And I think that's just something that is amazing. Like when you give yourself enough time, you can be creative and you choose to.
Yeah. So one of the things that I kind of hear you saying is the time necessary. So tell me if this isn't true. I'd love to hear your thoughts and speak into this. But I think a lot of people will say, "Hey, it's so cool, Morgan, that you do that, but I'm not a creative person, or I don't have a creative bone in my body, or whatever." And I believe that is a lie, straight from the pit of hell. Smells like smoke. Not it's trying to get us away from a really important part of how God made us. But I think one of the ways we feel disconnected from that creativity is we're so busy, we don't have time to let that just kind of come from us. Is that true? Do you find that to be true? Have you found that to be true as you've grown kind of in this area?
Yeah, for sure. You just touched on a major point that I kind of hammer home in my book is that I believe that we're all creative because we are created by a creator God. And that's the very first verb in the Bible, the very first verse of Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And so we're introduced to our God as a creator God, as this imaginative God making something out of nothing. And then just a couple of verses later, he tells us that we're made in his image. And so by default, we all are creative because God's creative and he made us all in his image. And so people, you're right. People have told me that at shows, they'll come up to me and look me dead in the eyes and say that they're not creative. And it really just breaks my heart because I think social media has really taken that joy away from people, because now the idea is if I'm not the best, then I'm disqualified. Right. And I think that's so untrue. I'm not the most famous potter on Instagram. I don't have the most sales or the most likes, but that doesn't disqualify me from being a potter. That shouldn't steal my joy for creating. And I think that's something that's so important to remember. It's not this instant gratification. It is years of study, years of practice. People love to look at my work and say that they wish that they could do that. And, I went to school for 4 years for it, and I'm still not perfect. I'm still honing that technique. Right. And so it does take time. And it is something that God has put a passion into each one of us for a different form of creativity. We're not all going to have the same exact art. And I think that's so important to remember as well.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. So what, in your perspective and opinion, are some of the things, and I think you were just touching on them, but that robs people of exploring their creative side? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I think social media is huge. Seeing the success of others and realizing that my pieces don't look like their pieces, I think that immediately disheartens people. I think also, if you try something and you don't have a passion for it or you're not good at it, then you assume that you're bad at everything related to that. Right. And that's also not true. If I had only tried to play an instrument, I don't read music well. So I would say, I'm not creative because I can't play the piano as well as this person because I can't read the music. But that doesn't mean I'm not creative, because I have a passion and a love for pottery, and God has given me the dexterity and the passion for it. He's given me the talent and the ability to learn the technique, more importantly. And so that is another area of creativity that I'm good at, but it doesn't mean I'm good at all forms of creativity. But likewise, it doesn't mean I'm bad at all forms of creativity. So I think sometimes it's just people not exploring enough. I didn't really know about pottery until I had the major back surgery. And so it's something I might never have tried. And I know that that was exactly a gift from God, that he allowed me to go through that so I could experience this. So it might just be that you haven't tried what God has given you a passion for yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, think about it. Like anybody that's gone to an art exhibit or a museum and walked down the halls, knows that there's a lot of different kinds of expression and a lot of different, tastes, and, there are pieces that are going to resonate with someone and not someone else. And that, I think that just speaks to the uniqueness of who people are. I'd love to press in a little bit more on what you're talking about with the way that you love dance, and then you had the injury, had to go through surgery, weren't able to do that anymore. And then because of that, you moved into pottery, which you now love. That's kind of what I'm hearing is part of the story. And you said something that I think was really powerful that I'd love to press into, which is that was actually a gift from the Lord to discover this new thing. So talk about that. Talk about how something that I think a lot of people look at only as a negative. And I'm sure there was lots of difficult and hardship and negative things about it, but you actually are calling the thing that I think a lot of people would describe only as a negative situation as a gift. Press into that.
Yeah. And I was there. I thought it was a curse for over 10 years. I didn't understand why. I didn't understand how it could be part of my purpose. I wished I was normal. For those who might not know, scoliosis is basically a genetic disorder where when I hit that last growth spurt when I was a teenager, my spine didn't grow straight. It grew from side to side. So I had an S curve in my back. There were 3 different curves. And every time I was growing, it would get a little bit worse. And so the doctors were monitoring that. I was wearing a back brace for 3 years, trying to correct or at least hold it in place. And it wasn't, obviously. I still had to have the surgery once I had kind of hit that growth spurt and stopped growing. And so I knew it was coming, but I didn't really fully prepare for mentally what that was going to be like. And of course, there were physical challenges as well. But you're right. I see that now as a gift. But it took me over a decade of just constantly asking God, what is my purpose? Why did you allow me to go through this? What am I supposed to do with my life? To really come to the other side of all of these questions and look back and realize that whole time, that whole time that God was giving me that story to give me the testimony I have now. And so who knows, without the scoliosis, I might never have discovered my love for pottery. I might never have gone to the college I went to. I might never have gotten the degree I have. I might never have moved to a different state. So there's so many things that just the surgery is really that jumping point in my life for the rest of my life. And so seeing that now and seeing the blessings that God has given me on the other side of that hardship, I'm just so thankful. And I do consider that as a gift. Now, of course, there are days that are still hard. I still tweak my back or, body image issues are still real for me. And so there are things that I wish could be different or I don't love about the situation, but I'm so thankful for the situation regardless, because it's given me so many better things, other things that I never would have been able to accomplish just by dancing.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely not easy to see where the story ends while you're in it. I mean, how can we?
Right.
But yes, I do think that there is so much hidden things that are buried inside us humans that we aren't aware that we're actually designed to do or really good at or would enjoy. I'm a big fan of sampling all sorts of creative things. And I think that we're so distracted in our culture and overworked and just exhausted from everything that the last thing we want to do is put effort into learning something, because it takes work and effort to go and learn something new.
Yeah.
Even if we do enjoy it,
Right.
It takes energy.
Yeah. And especially like what you were saying, Morgan, too, like social media kind of creates this.
It's a comparison game.
Yeah.
Comparison just kills.
It makes
creativity.
it hard to want to learn something new because you kind of feel like you have to start off good.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I tell my kids, Michael Jordan used to suck at basketball and Tiger Woods used to suck at golf. Like everybody,
none of us started out.
Yeah, you can't
with an ace in the hole.
Like you might be totally gifted by God to be an amazing potter, but you still had to start off not as good as you would like, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think there's elements of commitment too, of just, telling yourself, hey, I'm going to sample out this area and see how it feels, but it might take a while to decide if it's, in my wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. I think all too often we just either won't try it, or when we do and we're not that good at it, we assume that we will never be good at it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's not good because we don't know what lays in there and how much improvement we're going to be able to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Morgan, what would you say to people that do say, yeah, that's so cool. I'm so glad that you learned that. But I know you're saying everybody's creative, but I'm really not. Like, what would you say to a person that's saying that?
I would say just the regular dictionary definition of creativity is making something that didn't exist before. And that can look like a lot of different things. That can be taking a pile of laundry and putting it into an organized system, so to speak, or that could be setting up an Excel spreadsheet. That could be making up a song. It could be a lot of different things that we might not see as creative, especially when it comes to workforce related things like spreadsheets or lists or graphs. But you're making organization, you're making something that didn't exist before. And so I would argue that it's just as creative as painting or knitting or any of these other things that we naturally say are artistic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
totally
so
agree.
good. That's so good. So we've touched on this a couple times, but the necessity to have balance and space and time to be able to have opportunity to get in a creative mindset and create. So important. So we didn't talk about this, but I know that you're highly involved with your church and work with the youth and your marketing and the podcast and writing a book and running the small business to sell the art pieces that you're creating, and you got to create them. So how do you balance, how do you create a sense and a lifestyle of balance that allows you to do all that? How do you do that?
I think the beauty of this question is, do you want me to have an answer where I say, this is the one thing that I do?
Let's hear the
Exactly. Exactly. And the beauty is I don't. And I think that's so important to remember, is that my priority, whatever I'm doing, if it's the most mundane thing or if it's actually showing my pieces at a festival, my number one priority is to honor God in everything I do, to be that representation of God. And so whether I'm in the studio or at work or answering a phone call, whatever I'm doing, I'm trying to honor him in that way. And then my day from that point on, it looks different every day. Sometimes I'm in the studio more than others. Sometimes I'm doing computer work. Sometimes I'm delivering pots to galleries. And so it's really a what do I need to do in the moment type situation. And I'm such a planner. And we all know that you can only plan so much when you live in this world. And so it keeps me from planning too far ahead without God. And I think that's important, to focus on living in the moment as much as we can, focusing on what we can do right now, and then going forward from there.
Yeah, that's so good.
That's really good. Yeah. So you mentioned that you serve with the youth at your church, and that this is a necessary part of your life. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Of course. I didn't serve in the church I was in growing up because I didn't fully understand that I could serve in an everyday type setting. Being an introvert, I thought I had to be a door greeter or singing in the choir or going on the foreign mission trips. And I didn't really understand I could serve in the quiet ways. And so in the church I'm in now, they have a spiritual gifts class. And I took that class learning my top spiritual gift is knowledge. And so I really wanted to serve in the church in a way that I would feel useful and I would feel like I was making a difference, that I was actually contributing and not just burning out, so to speak. Because, you know, if you're giving your time, you want to feel like it's worth something and you're actually being helpful. And so I connected with a mentor, and she suggested working with the middle and high school students. And that has just been so amazing. It's something that I never would have just naturally placed myself into doing. But it's amazing to be able to talk to these students and watch them grow in their love for God and kind of help them along the way as well, answering questions and encouraging them in their faith.
Yes. So, yeah, I understand serving as an introvert. I am the same. Lots of people actually mistake me as an extrovert, but I'm definitely not.
You just put on the extrovert hat when you have to and slug through it.
Well, I mean, because, it's important. It's important not to, you just have to do the things that you hear the Lord calling you to do. So, and also, you know, my house of origin, I grew up in a extroverted situation. And so I was constantly pushed to do the things that I didn't want to do. And so I learned a lot of how to relate to people and such, but yeah. And definitely working with kids, they'll pull out whatever extroversion you have.
Yeah. They're pro at that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So Morgan, I'd love to just hear your thoughts and advice to people that, you know, they're listening to this and it's resonating with them, and they may be a little bit nervous, and we touched on it a little bit, you know, like starting with something, don't expect to be amazing at it, but like, what would you say to encourage people to explore the creative part of who they are, even though a lot of people have kind of written that off. Like, oh, I definitely, like when I was in third grade, you know, Susie made fun of my drawing with my crayons, and I decided right then that, you know, what would you say to the person that's really pushed this part of who they are away to maybe, you know, step back into a creative part of who they are?
I would start by saying God has given you this creativity, and there's a passion you have that God has given you. And if you're finding joy in that creative process, then you're honoring God because he's given you that desire and that ability to create in that way. And if you're struggling to find what that way is, maybe try something new with a friend, find a community. I think that's so important, which it sounds so cliche, but it really is amazing to have fellow artists around you. I work in a shared studio space. And so we're all doing different things, but we're all potters. And so I'm able to ask advice or offer suggestions or share the resources I have with somebody else. And it's really encouraging to be able to be around fellow creative minds. It stimulates my own mind, and it helps me to encourage others. So I would say, you know, sign up for a art class with a friend, see what happens. Maybe you both enjoy it.
That's super cool. Any thoughts, Prudence?
Do you find it difficult to put price tags on your art?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Yes, I do. Especially after COVID, a lot of the ceramics just material costs went up. And so it is hard even now to realize the cost of materials, plus the time it's taking to make these things. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to figure out how to price things. And that's something that I've worked with several different mentors on, getting their feedback on how they price their pottery, and then deciding if that's really the way I want to go or not. And yeah, just keep comparing in a way to other potters, seeing what they're doing, and decide if that's kind of what I want to do or if I want to do something different.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak on this. I feel like it's so important. Like you said it so well. In the very first verse of scripture, God is setting kind of a standard of creativity, and that he is a creative being. And then we know that we are made in his image. And I think that it's become kind of like almost a badge of honor to say, I'm not a creative person, you know, I don't do that. And I believe that to some degree, it's a bit of an excuse to not explore that, because there's some risk involved, right? Like there's risk of rejection, there's risk of failing. But at the end of the day, like I personally believe that in order to better have a understanding of who God really is, we have to be able to explore this element of it. And, you know, we really put a lot of effort as a family in our family of creativity, and we push it. And Prudence has been a really powerful, you know, proponent of how important this is. But I think, you know, the things that you're doing with the pottery and the book and all these things, it's really helping as a forerunner kind of push people in an area where social media and the internet and, plates at the dollar store really kind of creates a harsh environment to experiment and play. And so I just appreciate you taking time to pour into that. Where are the best places, and we'll put all these links in the show notes, but where are the best places for people to find your work and the book and more about you?
Of course, I would say just start at my website, and it's just my name, www.morganmccarver.com. And from there, you can shop my book, you can buy my pottery, you can connect with me on social media, sign up for my newsletter, all that good stuff.
Awesome.
Well,
So
thank you
good.
so much for the
thank you.
contribution you're making to our society. We definitely need more of your type,
Yeah.
speaking up and
100%.
teaching and sharing
Yeah.
and creating.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Morgan, thank you so much. You guys check out her website. You can find all that in the show notes, website and the book. And the name of the book again, one more time, was
God the Artist.
God the Artist. So you want to check that out for sure. And it's been awesome, Morgan. Thank you so much. We'll see all of you guys on the next episode. See you around.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for watching Together We Build with Chris and Prudence. To learn more about this and other amazing programs, visit eaglemountain.global. To learn more about Chris and Prudence and the ministries they serve, visit chrisandprudence.com.